नमस्कार, आप सभी का आईएएस भारत में स्वागत है। हमारे फ्री क्रैश कोर्स को ज्वाइन करने के लिए गूगल फॉर्म को फिल करें जो कि नीचे डिस्क्रिप्शन बॉक्स में दिया गया है। धन्यवाद।
So, hello everyone and welcome you all again in this series of lectures with IAS Bharat, a unit of Aram IAS. So, moving on to the last lecture or the last section of the Indian society portion, where we would be covering the two topics. One related to population and related issues, and second would be poverty. So these would be the last two topics that we will cover in the society portion, and we would follow the same format that we have been following till now, that we will take reference of some of the questions, some of the template answers, and with that we would try to understand these issues in detail and try to cover all the possible dimensions that are related to these topics. Before you start this, you can refer to the fact sheet that is available in the very initial of the Do Not Miss series book that is available with you guys. So just go through the basic data sets that are available there with respect to population, with respect to the poverty, so that you can utilize them while you are writing your introductions, while you are elaborating upon the points, or while you are concluding your answers. So we'll start with population. This topic particularly becomes very important in context of India because of its big population figures, and we know that we are the largest, the most populous country currently in the world. We have surpassed the China in a couple of years back. We have surpassed China and the most populous country in the world now. So with this large number of people, there are different level of challenges that exist. There are different issues that exist. We have tried to understand the social, the cultural aspects of it. Now we would discuss some of the more practical challenges that are associated with population in India. We are a young country, as we have discussed previously as well, that the mean age in India is around 28, 29 only. So this is the mean age in India, which is categorized as a young country only. Okay. And this is the average age. And most of the population is in the working age group of 15 to 59. So this is the demographic dividend of India. So it is with this big population figures that there are certain things which are associated. So let us understand them in detail and let us deal with these things. Okay, so the first question talks about the demographic dividend is not automatic. Discuss the conditions required for India to convert its favorable age structure into sustained economic growth. So you can start this answer with first the idea of demographic dividend. That what is demographic dividend? The benefits, the economic benefits that a nation receives with its population transitioning into the working age group. So in the working age group of 15 to 59, what are the benefits, economic benefits that a country gains? Most of the countries, or if I can say that almost all of the countries, they go through these phases. There is a proper population cycle that is there. You must have heard about the demographic transition model, which talks about the 5 different stages through which a country goes in its population cycle. It goes through very low population that peaks at a time and that gradually declines. And this is the birth rate and the death rate that is there. So this is the time when most of its population is in the highest bracket, and when the population is youngest, which is understood with the age sex pyramid. You must be aware. So we are just briefly briefing up some of the key concepts. Age sex pyramid is there, in which male, female and different age groups that you highlight. Okay. Young, mid and old age. So this is, in case of India, the current structure is the bell-shaped structure, which talks about that most of the population is in the mid-age, which is the working age group of 15 to 59. So if India has to benefit from this, then they have to sort of capitalize, they have to invest into its population sources, into its population resources. And this demographic dividend, it is not something that will come on its own. It is not something automatic. We'll have to put in conscious efforts, we'll have to put in a good amount of skill, good amount of education, good healthcare for this demographic dividend to reach to its potential. So the economic survey of 2018-19, it says that India's demographic dividend will peak in 2041. So currently we are going through that phase of demographic dividend when our population is youngest. And the UNFPA notes that favorable age yields growth only when supported by proper socio-economic policies. So there is a need that the social infrastructure of a country, which includes the basic things, education, healthcare, food and nutrition, sanitation, access to other basic infrastructural things, which sort of helps an individual to reach to its full potential. Why demographic dividend is not automatic? The first part talks about it. It is jobless growth. Yes, jobless growth. In case of India, we see that there are three stages, there are three generally sectors which are designed: the primary sector, secondary sector, and then the tertiary sector. So we see that when countries that transition from the primary, which is agriculture sector, to the industrial sector, then the services sector, this is the natural progression. But what happened in case of India, we were an agricultural society largely till 1990s. Suddenly, after the LPG reforms, with the coming up of the new economic reforms, what happened that we transitioned gradually because of coming of the investments, good investments from outside, because of good opportunities for outsourcing of the work, of coming up of the BPOs, call centers, and then the software boom that happened in the early 2000s. What happened that we transitioned from agricultural to directly to the tertiary sector. So the weak industrialized base or the weak manufacturing base in India is one of the reasons because of which we can see that there is jobless growth. So within the tertiary sector, the growth is very significant, but due to skills deficit, due to less skill with the populace, which is either semi-skilled or it is skill-less population, what happened was that we were seeing that this transition happened and people were not getting enough jobs. So the proportion in which the growth happened, the people were not earning into that proportion. The per capita income also increased, but what happened was that there was large scale inequalities that exist in the population. We have seen through the Oxfam reports which suggest that top 1% of the population in the country, they hold close to 40 to 50% of the total wealth. However, the bottom 40 to 50% of the population is hardly having 3 to 5% of the total wealth. So this is the scale of inequality that exists in the country. So first is the jobless growth pattern that was observed. Second was the skill deficit we have talked about. And I've also given this data set in one of the discussions that UNESCO is saying that at the current level of the skill set that the Indian youth have, by 2030, around 50% of them would be rendered jobless and unemployed because of the mismatch of the skills with respect to the industrial standards. So this is a concerning part. You can highlight or utilize this data by UNESCO that by 2030, at the current level of skill set, around 50% of the youth entering into the job market, they would be rendered unemployed. Low female participation rate. We have discussed these things in very detail, that what were the factors that have restricted the meaningful participation of women in the workforce. Okay, this is currently, it stands around 37%. Okay, so what are the conditions required for this thing to translate into actual growth, quality education, and human capital? We cannot ignore the foundational aspects. If we are supposed to build something big, then we cannot ignore on the foundational part of it. We cannot ignore the primary healthcare sectors, the basic healthcare, basic nutrition in the early ages of the population. We cannot ignore the foundational literacy, the foundational numeracy that is needed. We have discussed this thing in detail, that how the foundational education in the schools, it is a challenge in India. People, they are not able to think critically. It is the rote learning that is eating up the whole system. So this is something that we need to work upon, especially in an era where AI is taking most of the roles, when we need critical thinking and application of the various digital tools at its highest. So we need to be cautious about our education and human capital. If we are not able to generate these basic things, then the human capital, it will not be generated. Employment intensive growth. We need to invest. We know that with our population, if we see that agriculture, which is the primary sector, in the industrial sector and the tertiary sector, what is there, that this is population share and this is contribution to GDP. So you can make these diagrams, you can utilize these tables, that in the primary sector, which is the agriculture sector, around 45 to 47% of the population is engaged. However, its contribution in GDP is around 16 to 18% only. When we talk about the tertiary sector, then the population share is very less. This is around, I think, around 20%, but its contribution in the GDP, it is more than 50%. And this missing middle, this is also a term that you can utilize, missing middle. This is the issue because of which a large part of the population is suffering. And why is that so? Because this is a skill intensive sector. This is a skill intensive sector, and it needs good amount of skills, soft skill, technological skills, for people to be employed in this particular sector. But such is not the case in the industrial sector, in the manufacturing sector or in the industries, because it needs semi skills or less skills, which can be obtained with certain skilling programs that goes into the nation. So if we have to shift our population, because this is a low earning segment, if we have to shift our population from this low earning segment to a high earning segment, then we have to focus upon the manufacturing sector. And it is one of these things that we have to build upon. We have to focus upon the MSME sector, the cottage sector, which forms the base of industrialization in India. We cannot ignore that aspect and expect that people would be absorbed. So all these people who are coming out of agriculture, they needs to be absorbed in the manufacturing sector for the human capital to reach its potential. Gender inclusion. We will have to put in our conscious efforts to include the child care from the very childhood level. We'll have to implement policies. We have to work as a societal unit, as an economic unit, to bring more and more people from the vulnerable genders into the mainstream economic activities. Social equity and regional balance. This is something that needs to be promoted, because many of the deficiencies or many of the issues that people face are because of the social inequalities that exist in our society. We'll have to take care of these things and promote the regional planning. There cannot remain pockets of deprivation in islands of development. So you can utilize these terms, pockets of deprivation, that the eastern parts of the country with states like Bihar, some pockets of Jharkhand, Odisha and Uttar Pradesh, parts of Madhya Pradesh which are facing these issues of unemployment. We cannot afford to have these pockets of deprivation. Urban planning and migration management. There is a need that this aggressive migration that is taking place in India from the rural hinterlands to the urban areas, this needs to be tapped in a very rational manner. We need to develop mechanisms by which we are able to absorb these people here only. And how can we do that? By promoting labor intensive industries, which includes the food processing industry, which includes the textile industries and other industries which are associated with the agriculture sector. So there is a need that this segment of the population, it is absorbed at the manufacturing level. Consequences of failure may widen. So what are the issues if these things are not taken care of properly? Then we all know that there can be a demographic liability that might erupt in the coming times. That these people who are in their middle ages, when they will go into their geriatrics or go into their old ages, there will be all sorts of issues, and it would be very difficult for the state or the society as a whole to control all these things. So failure to address demographic and developmental changes may widen. Regional and social inequalities, these things may widen. Rising migration pressure can accelerate urban congestion, unemployment, informalization of the labor. So all sorts of issues that exist in the society, they will amplify if we are not able to utilize our human capital properly. And to add here, that it can also lead to increased crime rates. It can lead to many of the social tensions increasing into the society. Why these social tensions might increase? These might increase because of the reason that when people are rendered unemployed, and due to the huge diversity, there is a high probability that these people might fall prey to the non-state actors, which can lead to their polarization of their minds, which they can be brainwashed with different identities that they are associated with. So we'll have to take care of that part as well. Then we can conclude as to how we can utilize this demographic window in an effective manner for us to realize our dream of Vikshit Bharat 2047. Moving on to the next question. In recent times, total fertility rate in India is undergoing a sharp decline. What are the possible reasons for decline of TFR, and list out its impact? So we know that ideal total fertility rate indicates the average number of children a woman is expected to bear in her lifetime. So you can briefly define what is TFR and what is the current TFR of India. So it is at the replacement levels of 2.0, which is the replacement level of 2.1. And what is this replacement level? That if two parents, or if there are two parents bearing two childs, then it is the exact replacement rate that these people, when they are replaced by two people. If it is getting less than 2, then there is an imbalance, that these two people are not exactly replaced by two people, and it can create certain population related issues that we currently are observing in case of China and in the developed world, where they are facing the depopulation threat. Causes of declining TFR: female education and empowerment. This is given because earlier what used to happen, due to lack of education and lack of economic opportunities available with the women, they had to face these issues. Now these things are improving. Improved family planning access, wider availability of contraceptions under the government schemes. Mission Parivar Vikas has enabled the couples. So you can utilize these schemes like Mission Parivar Vikas, National Health Mission, which have helped people in better family planning. People are able to communicate themselves due to the dialogues that are established because of the changing nature of the society, where the decisional power of the women, it is improving, and they are able to negotiate certain things because of their empowerment aspect. These things are improving. Urbanization and nuclear families. This is one of the reasons that because of which the population has reduced to this TFR level, that in the urban areas the cost of living is very high. People maintain their cost of living, as a result of which they invest less into these things and plan their families effectively. To give you a context here, what happened in case of China, so there are two type of population control policies that are there. Population policies, there are two types of population policies: anti-natalist policies, anti-natalist, and there is pro-natalist. So these are applicable for different set of societies. Anti-natalist are the population reducing policies, in which we have to reduce the population, and this is for the population improvement policies, which are generally found in the developed world. This is found in the developing world. So within this, one is voluntary anti-natalist policy, and there is forced anti-natalist policy. So this was observed in case of China, where they forced their people to go to two-child policy. Then they from three-child policy to they went to two-child policy to one-child policy. Now they are realizing that a large population of them is going into the old age. The young population with them is not enough. So now they have realized that they have to again push for higher population, but that doesn't happen. It is here that I wanted to make this thing, I want to highlight this thing, that when people started realizing that by having less children, they are having benefits in forms of a good lifestyle, they are able to maintain a good lifestyle, they resort to such measures. Even after government resorting to two-child or three-child policy in China now, they are not able to improve or increase the population, because there is a mindset shift that has happened in the minds of the people. Now they don't want more children, they want less children now. Okay. Rising aspirations and women workforce participation. Again, this can be linked to women's increasing importance, or with the women empowerment aspect that we have discussed. Changing social norms, constitutional recognition of reproductive autonomy. Yes, we have understood that how the bodily autonomy of women, it has improved. Okay. Impacts on Indian society. Positive impacts, demographic dividend window. So as a result of this, what has happened, that the demographic window benefit till around 2035. So because of this this TFR level, we would still be having a young population for quite some time from now. Better human capital investment, that if the TFR has reduced, people are having less number of children compared to the previous times. People, along with the government, they would be in a position to invest effectively into human empowerment, or let us say into the human capital empowerment initiatives effectively. Negative impacts. Aging population is there, that can create issues to reach about 20% by 2050. So the elderlies, you can take note of this important data set, that by 2050, 60 plus population will be 20% of our population. This is said by UN DESA. Shrinking workforce in future, this is one of the causes. Regional imbalances is also observed because of this is the TFR of the nation. But at the subnational level, we will see that there are other patterns which are observed. And how can we understand them? We can understand them with the help of a map, which shows that how there are variations in these regions. They have a high TFR. These regions, they have low TFR. So you can make these basic maps by which you can indicate that what is the TFR in these particular states, in the southern states, what is the TFR in the southern states. So you can always represent and enhance the presentation aspect of your answers. Policy implications or reforms, national population policy. So you can mention some of these policies which can be highlighted. So India's declining TFR reflects progress in education, healthcare. However, if the trend continues unchecked, it may lead to population aging, labor shortages. So it is not that all of a sudden we see that our population has entered in an era which it should not have. Okay. Third question talks about, despite achieving replacement level fertility at the national level, India faces sharp regional variations in population growth. Analyze the causes and implication of this demographic divergence. So basically this talk about the thing that we have discussed previously only. It says that there are regional variations that exist with respect to the decline in the total fertility rate at the subnational level. So what are the causes and what are the implications of this divergence in the at the regional level that is observed? So sample registration system, it talks about TFR decline to below the replacement level with interstate demographic asymmetries. What are the causes? Differential socio-economic development. This is the most important cause because of which this thing happens. We see that the differences in the social infrastructure that we see, difference in social infrastructure of health, of education, that we see at the subnational level, especially with respect to the northern parts of the nation and southern parts. We take the example of Kerala, we take the examples of the southern states, where we see that the literacy levels, the literacy figures are very high, where the maternal mortality rate is low, where the infant mortality rate is also very low. So it is these factors which are contributing towards the low TFR. It is one of the reasons. Second is female education and workforce participation. This is also one of the reasons. High female literacy rates of around 95% in Kerala. And we also see that in the northern states, which are also categorized. Now this terminology has been left out of the Bimaru states that we consider in the northern belt. They have low female participation because of rigid patriarchal norms that exist in the northern parts of the society. Health infrastructure gaps. We know that there are unequal, there are disparities that exist, and these are not only at a divide that exist in the northern states or the southern states. It exists at the rural level, at the urban level, and in different pockets of the country which are left behind. Take the example of the Himalayan states. Due to accessibility, there are issues. We can take the example of the northeastern states, where the states are facing certain issues due to connectivity issues and others. Implications or consequences. Political representation imbalance. We know that the debate of delimitation, it revolves around this one aspect, because the delimitation, it happens based on the population figures. So if the population figures are if they are less, then there would be less representation. There are apprehensions that seats might reduce from the southern parts of the country and increase that of in the northern parts. So this is an issue that is a federal in nature. So this is these federal issues also get reflected because of this. Political representation imbalance, fiscal federalism tensions also. These, because of the tax devolution, within this there are criteria related to population and others. So as a result of this, the states which are doing good in this aspect, they might be at a relative disadvantage compared to other nations. Okay. Demographic dividend versus burden. Northern states possess a very youthful population which becomes only through adequate skilling. Yes. So third implication could be that either it could be a demographic dividend or a demographic burden, and it all depends upon, that we have discussed earlier as well, that it depends upon the level of skilling that we would go on in doing. Urban and social pressure. Rising migration towards economically advanced states intensifies urbanization challenges, including so this difference between the urban areas and the rural areas is also one thing to be noted. What are the reforms that we can take? Strengthen the female education and healthcare. So this is one thing that has to be improved, because it is the female because of which this whole thing is driven. We see that the Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, and we see that there is a disparity that exists with respect to the population as well. The choices that are made in the society because of the patriarchal mindset, that sons are still preferred more compared to the girl child. So we have to shift from this particular mindset of ours. Targeted aspirational districts program. A targeted approach has to be there, wherein we are targeting specific regions which are facing these issues of healthcare, of basic skilling, of education, which can contribute towards their other aspects. Cooperative federalism in delimitation. We have to balance that. If some states are doing good in controlling the population, then their representation or the representation frameworks have to be designed in such a manner that no one is at a relative disadvantage. Compare India's approach to aging with that of developed countries, promoting productive aging. Of aging with developed countries, what lessons can be learned? The national policy on old phase required during social security, and with India's elderly 60 plus projected to reach 2050. So you have to take note of this data set. Please write this down, that by 2050 around 20% will be in the elderly age group. So India's approach to aging, what are the features of it? Welfare centric model. The current is welfare centric model, with old age pensions, with other social benefits. We provide them the living aid assistance tools. We also provide them rehabilitation measures, sometimes habitations of these elderly. So this is more of a welfare based. It is very natural as well, because the Indian constitution, it advocates for a welfare state in case of India. Family based care, rooted in traditional values, reinforced by maintenance and welfare of the. So this is from the side of the state. This is family based care, which is a societal component of how we deal with aging. Healthcare initiatives by government, national program for healthcare of elderly, recent shift, senior care growth engine promotes elderly focused startups. So it is important that when we take account of the elderly population, we have to promote certain aspects into our economic systems by which we are able to integrate them rather than excluding them out of these economic systems. We have to make them an integral part of these systems. And how can we do that? By promoting soft skills for them, by involving them into counseling roles, by promoting them into management or managerial roles where they can work effectively. Developed countries productive aging model, active labor participation, seniors to remain economically active. In Japan, elderly employment exceeds 25% through flexible. So we are taking a comparison of this with respect to the countries which are in developed state. So what they do is, for the elderly population, just because they have reached the age of 60, they do not sort of exclude them out of the economic systems they were a part of for quite a long time. They still keep them with them. And it is proved by the data in case of Japan. We see that people work there till the age of 70 also, 70, 75. It doesn't matter in case of these developing nations. Lifelong learning systems. So reskilling, adult education programs. We see that in case of these developing nations, it is not something that after a point of time, there is a stoppage. There is a full stop in lives of these elderly people. But what we see is that there is a cycle that goes on, that if the age increases, then there will be provisions for you to get into that particular age and and have a different set of skills which could be utilized in the geriatrics economic systems. Strong social security, universal pensions and long-term care insurance systems. So it is also important that we take inference from these measures in the developing part, that there are strong insurance measures. There are provisions which provide care at the later age as well. Age-friendly ecosystem, health, participation, dignity. So all these things that we have discussed about the developed world, these things become very important. Issues in India: low pension coverage, feminization of aging, higher widowhood, poverty among women. So this is a phenomena that is observed in case of Indian society, that the feminization of aging. And as a result of this, there are all different set of issues that are associated. Economic issues, they do not have, because they were not part of the economic system actively, and after they have attained their age, what happens? They are rendered poor, they are rendered homeless in many of the cases. That generates a crisis for them. They are left out of these economic systems and other parts, and they are not able to sustain themselves properly. The emotional traumas, the physical stress that they go through, and all set of crimes that happen at this age. Social isolation, urbanization, weakening family support. Lessons for India: shift to productive aging, universal social security, lifelong learning and skilling has to be there, age-friendly infrastructure, institutional care plus community models. We have to focus upon all the parts in the spirit that after attaining a certain age, it doesn't mean that the people, those who are attaining that age, they are left completely useless. It is just that their capacities have taken a shift. It is just that there is an evolution with respect to the works that they can do because of the physical limitations that come with aging. So we will have to design our systems in such a way where we can see and sort of devise them which sort of aligns with their needs, which aligns with their capacities and capabilities. And I'm sure there are ways by which we can do. Okay, reskilling is there. Promotion to silver economy is one thing that can be done. Then we talk about examine the paradox of population control discourse in India at a time when certain regions are facing low fertility and aging populations. So this talks about the paradox of population control discourse in India at a time when are facing low fertility and aging population. So what are the factors by which this there is a paradox that is observed? One thing that is highlighted is the low fertility, and second is the aging population. So as a result of this, what are the things that are observed? India's population discourse shaped by National Population Policy of 2000. National Family Health Survey 5 shows India's TFR at 2, below replacement level. So nature of paradox: divergent demographic regimes, southern states, northern states. So we are seeing that there is a regional component that is attached to this divergence which we see. Second, uniform policy discourse versus regional reality. Continued advocacy of population controls despite decline in fertility. Yes, we have seen that the total fertility overall, it is declining, but there are advocates, there are people, there are debates and discussion that goes on which suggest that population control has to be there. It is undoubtedly, we know that India has a huge population, but a complete stoppage at this point of time, it can be disastrous in the long run, in the sense that if we do that at this point of time, let us say this was our population cycle, it has reached to this level. This is the cycle. It has reached to this level at its highest. What if this cycle would have, this is the natural progression. What if we do this by controlling the population, that it was increasing and suddenly with strict we reduced it? this difference that is there, it will create disastrous results in case of India. So we cannot naturally do these things. Drivers of continued population control, political narratives. So these are some of the things which are ingrained in the societal discussions, in the debates and discourses that goes into society, that a huge population is a burden on the resources. We all know that there are challenges associated with a huge population, but that should not be developed as a narrative, because we have already discussed what could be the disastrous impacts of it. There will be labor shortages, there will be sudden population decline, because of which the elderly population would not be able to sustain, and other challenges that are associated. Developmental concerns, urbanization, unemployment, stress linked to population size. So this is largely around the discourse, or how the society perceives these issues to be propagating in a particular direction or particular manner. Issues and criticism. Policy mismatch, ignores aging crisis, elderly share rise to 14%. Regional inequalities, risk of premature aging, southern states facing shrinking workforce population without adequate social security. Gender concerns. So we have to discuss, when we are talking about population, we have to discuss it from various verticals. One of the regional patterns that are observed, one between rural versus urban, one that is associated with other identities, be it the marginalized communities, or be it the majority communities that exist, and also it can be discussed with respect to the gender aspect as well. So these are 4 to 5 different verticals through which you can analyze this particular thing. What is the significance of addressing this paradox? It is that there will be economic sustainability, social security burden. Aging reduces labor supply, impacts the growth. So if we address this particular paradox that we have been discussing, then there will be economic benefits of it. There are demographic dividend at risk. Without region specific policies, dividend remains uneven. So this will translate further as well. The inequalities that exist at the present times, it will also translate if we do not deal with this particular thing very maturely. Reform measures, differentiated policy approach. Yes, it is very important that we have to move away from the top-down model of policy making. We have to do data-driven, evidence-backed policies which are targeted in nature. They target certain areas which needs to be worked upon. And when we are talking about population, then it has to be targeted in the sense it targets specific regions, it targets specific communities, specific genders, or wherever the issue is. So the policy has to be in that direction. Second is shift to reproductive rights, move from control to choice-based family planning. So family planning is something that can be rationalized more here as well. How can we do that? From control to choice-based family planning. Aging preparedness, strengthen national program for healthcare of elderly. So we have to have a proper discussion on this thing, that when we are talking about elderly population, our discourse has to change. Discourse has to change from them being liability to one being with different abilities, with a different set of capacities that can be applicable in their case. Labor mobility, encourage interstate migration to balance demographic gaps. So sometimes these things happen naturally, sometimes it becomes a necessity that people migrate from a place to another. Let us say in case of some of the states, be it southern states or some of the other developed states, be it Maharashtra, be it Gujarat, where we see that migration happens from the pockets of Rajasthan, from the pockets of from Bihar, Uttar Pradesh. We see that people migrate because of out of certain necessities there. India must move beyond a one-size-fits-all population narrative to a balanced demographic management strategy. So this is the conclusion as a solution to the paradox that we have been discussing, that how the discourse is so misplaced if we are looking it as one umbrella. We have to look at the regional level as well. Next is India's demographic dividend is incomplete without addressing the challenges of demographic aging. So we are connecting the demographic dividend with demographic aging as well. Let us see how this is done. Demographic dividend we have described. We have also described the elderly population data, the demographic aging part, features of India's demographic transition, youth bulge advantage. India's mean age is around 28 years, which supports labor supply, productivity, savings, etc. You can make the diagram here. I made it several times though. That the bell-shaped diagram that is applicable in case of India, where most of the population is in this middle age group. Rising elderly population, the elderly share increased from 10% in 2011 to 14%, and it is supposed to increase to 20% by 2050. So there is an increment that is noticed in case of the elderly population. In 2011 it was 10%, now it has raised to 14%, and it will lead to 20% by 2050. So you can represent these things with a graph as well. Regional imbalance. So we have seen that states, they are aging faster than the southern states, they are aging faster compared to the northern states. Why dividend is incomplete without addressing aging? Yes, rising dependency ratio. So dependency is one part that we have to discuss in length. That there are two types of dependencies when we talk about demographic studies. And what are these? One is the young age dependencies, which are the kids. And second is the elderly age dependencies. So they both depend upon the mid-age population. So this is the framework of dependencies that is applicable when we talk about demographic studies. So this dependency ratio is bound to increase because the population bulge that we have seen, which is high in case of middle ages, one day this will transition and this will become like this. It will become like a mushroom shape. This is the thing that we associate, the mushroom shaped, where a large part of the population, it is in the higher age brackets. As a result of this, the dependency, that there will be more elderly people compared to the young people because of the replacement ratio declining. Healthcare burden will be there, and informal economy risks would be there, feminization of aging. So these are all the sets of issues. And how can you generate these points? You cannot remember everything that is written. So try to bring in all the different people that would be involved into these particular issues. What would be the different aspects of human living that can be correlated here? Health is one, care is there, physical health, mental health, you can go there. From there you can go to the gender part or the feminization of aging. All these phenomena that you can include. Issues and criticism, welfare centric schemes. What are the issues in India's approach? We have discussed that how the developed world, it is sort of utilizing the capacities of their population in a different way compared to the developing world, which is the case of India, that we are relying more on welfare centric policies. So it will create a huge burden on the state exchequer as well. the state would not be in a position to provide to a great amount of population in the higher age brackets a consistent supply of healthcare and other care that would be needed. So we have to translate this from welfare centric to active participation with different capacities. Weak enforcement is there, inadequate geriatric care, social change. So this social change, it doesn't have to be very abrupt. So the government, the society as a system, they can interact in a manner that these issues they might not surface. What are the reforms and way ahead from here? Productive aging, universal social security, healthcare strengthening, policy convergence has to be there. So the solutions, they will come from all the levels, from all the hierarchies of these issues. This will work at the level of the people. This will also work at the level of the at the policy level, at the institutional level, and all sorts of these things. Then we can conclude long-term benefits only if it is complemented by proactive measures to address demographic aging. In recent times, there is a trend of increasing fertility clinics in Indian cities, which shows the decreasing trend of TFR. What are the reasons for declining trend of TFR? We have already discussed this question, that there are socio-economic factors because of higher education of the women empowerment related things that have happened, because of which these things are happening. Demographic health factors are also there, aspirational factors. What are the implications? Demographic consequences. Aging population and rising old age dependency. Dependency ratio will increase if the population it sees some kind of imbalance at this point of time, that we suddenly stop that there is no young population. Okay. Economic implications will be there. The labor shortages, fiscal burden on pensions and healthcare. Social implications will also be there. Rise in the fertility clinics, changing family structures, policy responses to regulate the fertility clinics, need for reforms, work-family balance policies promoting. So you can write all these things. So this was about population. So one of the key areas that we have to focus, one is the aging population. This is an important theme when it comes to the population studies. Second is with respect to the demographic dividend of India. There have been asked questions, and there will be questions in the future as well. What are the issues that are faced, and how can we deal with this particular issue? Next important thing that comes with population studies is the comparison of the developing world with the developed world. We have seen that questions are asked about demographic winter. So what does the questions of demographic winter suggest? That the shrinking population that exists in case of developed world. So how to deal with that problem? Population as a dynamic, it becomes an issue when either it is too high or either it is too low. So in both the situations, this imbalance that is there, it creates issues. And it is very natural that this thing happens, that initially the population is less, then it booms, then it declines gradually. So there have to be policy measures, there have to be policy frameworks which could promote that these things are done or worked effectively. So this was the discussion on population. And next one is the poverty and developmental problems. So moving on to the last topic of Indian society, which is poverty and developmental issues. So we have discussed all sorts of topics till now. We have discussed population and related issues, the diversity in the society. Now this women and related issues as well. Now poverty, it is a pertinent issue in context of India. And it is very important for us to discuss this thing in detail. So we'll try to discuss what are the causes of poverty in India, what are the social implications of it, what are the ways by which we can deal with the problem of poverty. So let us take some of the questions by which we can have a good understanding of these different issues. So the first one is India is moving towards ensuring nutrition security. In this context, list out the existing challenges to achieve nutrition security and the measures taken by government in this regard. So I think this is a different question. We can take this as a question of population as well, that there are issues with respect to nutrition in case of India, and what are the government measures that are taken. We can start this answer with particularly with the hunger index ranking of India, and also with respect to other population other data sets which can be relevant of FAOs with the availability of nutrition. And there have been reports which says that India has achieved its food security, but now what is needed is to move towards from food security to nutritional security. It is here that this becomes very important. So what are the challenges to nutritional security? First is the persistent child malnutrition. And the National Family Health Survey data, they indicate the level of stunting, the level of underweight and wasting that exist in case of India. Please do remember these data sets. These will not only be utilized in the nutrition part, then you can also utilize them when you are discussing about human capital, when you are discussing about demographic dividend, when you are discussing other aspects of poverty as well, that how these things are impacting and getting impacted. So this is the child nutrition reflects chronic undernutrition in intergenerational poverty. So one of the other reasons that why this thing happens in the first place is because of the intergenerational poverty that exists, that the parents, they were not able to sustain. Or let me bring this data set here only for you, that the World Bank defines per day $3 of income has to be there for a person to sustain itself. So for all those who are below $3 per day, they can be categorized as extremely poor as per the definition of extremely poor as per the definition of World Bank. So this data set you can remember. So when we are talking about this intergenerational poverty, so we can take reference that there is a large chunk of population, though we have made significant strides in this direction, but still there is a large chunk of population which is below the poverty line. Anemic pandemic, anemia among the women, severe public health concerns. So what is the second, especially with respect to nutrition, the first source for them is the nutrition that would be coming from their lactating period, when they are in the when they sort of depend upon their mother. And we see that most of the women, which is around 57% of the total population, if it is anemic in case of India, then we can see the level of malnutrition that exists on both the sides, with the women, which would be gradually transferred when they would conceive or when they would give birth to the children. That thing would be transferred to the children's. So anemic women, severe public health concerns, it impacts the cognitive development, immunity and productivity of the women. It impacts and it translates to the children as well gradually. Regional and social inequalities are there. Higher nutrition among the scheduled tribes, urban slums, aspirational districts. So this inequality, this intersectionality that we have been discussing about for quite a significant time, with respect to caste, with respect to ethnicity, with respect to gender, with respect to regions, with respect to level of economic development or the economic stratas of the society, these things, they exist. What these inequalities they do is they create the inequalities in access to healthcare. They generate the inequalities in access to good nutrition, good food that could sustain them properly. Dietary transition and junk food, rising obesity among the women, 24% overweight or obese. So you can take note of these data sets which becomes very important while you are describing your shift. shift towards processed and high calorie foods. We are seeing that India is facing this issue, that from food security we have moved to a stage where we are consuming more and more processed food, processed industrial foods, which is causing certain issues. And when we talk about imbalance in the nutrition, it is both malnutrition as well as overnutrition. So what happens in this case is the overnutrition part. Sometimes high sugar intake, we consume other oil related products which are not good for health. What are the government measures that are in place? Poshan Abhiyan, that is there. PM Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. This scheme was implemented during the times of the COVID. In addition to the national food security program that is available, this additional aid was provided. This additional provisioning of the food grains was there for the population. Mission Saksham Anganwadi, upgrade in infrastructure for the early childhood care. The Anemia Mukt Bharat, which provided for supplementation and deworming of the children. So there are, at different age levels or different age brackets or age groups, we see that there are different government initiatives or government programs that are implemented. So we can talk about, in the conclusion part, building a healthy India, the sustainable development goal 2, women empowerment. So all these things are intertwined in such a way that we cannot isolate one particular, and we can ignore one aspect of it and focus on the other. We have to work upon this as a system. Second is, India remains in top position among the other countries in income inequality. What are the causes and implications of income inequality persisting in case of India? Now we are taking up the questions related to poverty and inequality. So inequality is a concern for India, not only in the societal sense that we have discussed in very detail, but also with respect to the economic inequalities. I have been referring to this data set again and again, that the top 1% of the population, this is top 1%, and this is the bottom 50% of the population. This is having only 3 to 5% of the wealth. However, they are having a control over 40% of the wealth. So these are startling figures which reflect the level of inequality that exists in case of India. World Inequality Lab, India is amongst the most unequal countries. We can take the reference of, there is an index which measures inequality, the Gini coefficient as we call it. So the Gini coefficient is also suggesting the level of inequalities that exist in case of India. We see that there is a major chunk of the population which is not earning enough, and we see that there is a major chunk, a very less number of people who are earning so much. But when we calculate the per capita income of the whole nation, we see that it has increased, but that has not materialized and that have not been translated in improving the lives of the day-to-day people. So this is the issue. What are the causes of income inequality in India? Structural and historical figures. We know that the issues of poverty, the issues of inequality, they have started way back. The manner in which the resources were controlled in the past is the similar manner which is followed in the present times as well. So we see these things happening as well. Okay. Economic factors. Apart from the historical factors that are there, colonial legacy is there, caste-based occupational stratification affecting the SC/STs. So we cannot ignore the social realities, how they have played out in case of generating in economic inequalities in case of India. Economic factors are also responsible for this jobless growth and dominance of informal sector and skill bias. So there is a section of population who was earlier involved into the agriculture sector. Now they are transitioning with very less skill set into some other job roles, which may be in the manufacturing sector or in the industrial sector. We would see certain changes happening. But when we compare that with respect to a person who is having a good skill set, then the person would be earning far more than the person. The amount of labor, it might be equal in both the cases, but with the degree of earning that they are having, it is very less. So it is the mismatch in the skills, it is also responsible for generating those inequalities. Regional and social disparities also there. We know that the gender wage gap that exists, low female labor force participation, these in are a way extending or perpetuating the inequalities that exist in the society. Uneven regional development, we can take the example again with respect to the different pockets of the nation. We see that the northern states and compare the per capita income of the southern states, then it would be relatively high in case of the southern states because of higher literacy figures, because of good health infrastructure, because of them having a good command over good skill sets, which is giving them gainful employment. However, most of the employment that is generated in parts of Bihar, in parts of Uttar Pradesh, Jharkhand, they are based upon low paying labor activities, which is not enough for them to come out of this vicious cycle of poverty. There are governance and policy related issues as well. Regressive indirect taxation. So the indirect tax regime that is there in case of India, it's a big debate that goes on, that to purchase a particular thing, let us say I am purchasing a particular a food item which is taxed at 18%. So if I am a commoner who is only earning 500 per day, would be paying the same tax compared to the person who is earning lakhs per day as well. So this imbalance that is there in the indirect taxation regime is a cause of concern, is a cause of a lot of debates as well. So this regressive taxation is limited wealth and inheritance taxes. So the amount of wealth that people have inherited, it have also largely depend upon the factors which exist now, and they have existed earlier as well with respect to the level of inequalities in society. What are the implications of persisting inequality? There are social consequences. First is the intergenerational nature of poverty. You have to take note of these terminologies. Intergenerational poverty. So what is this poverty? Intergenerational poverty, that the poverty that exists in a particular generation due to their lack of capacities to transform their lives to come out of those poverty levels. These are transmitted to the next generation. And how these are transmitted? If I am someone who is earning less, then I will not be able to provide a good education, good health care, good nutrition to my coming generation. And what will happen as a result of that? The population in itself, it will not be able to build good skill set. It will not be able to change itself at par with the changing times. And this is how the property, it was transferred from one to the another one. Second is the marginalization of the vulnerable groups. Undoubtedly there are welfare schemes which targets the marginalized groups, but that is not sufficient in itself. We cannot, there's a saying which says that it is better to teach someone fishing than I cannot catch fish for you every day for you to get your nutrition, but I can teach you fishing so that you can do that on your own self. So we have to focus that it is good that we are providing that support for them to to come out of those clutches. But that is not sufficient in itself. We have to build those capacities by which we can bring them out. Economic consequences of it. What are the economic consequences? Lower aggregate demand, underutilization of demographic dividend, thus wasting human capital. So if there is huge inequality that exists in case of India, then we will see that these inequalities, people are not able to consume more and more. So if there is such a tendency that people are not consuming more, then we will not be in a position to produce more as well. So as a economic system, we will not be gaining from these inequalities. So if someone is earning so high, but the other is not able to consume in proportion to what they should be, then ultimately as a system we are not benefiting from it, and will not be able to utilize the demographic dividend that we have talked about. The human potential, it would be wasted due to lack of these basic things, availability of these basic things. Political and ethical concerns, social unrest, erosion of, so all the social tensions that we have been discussing till now, they can be caused further as well. Because if there is a population which is facing discrimination, which is facing the issues of poverty at all the levels of their lives, what will happen to them when they will interact with the society at large? When they would see a society which is different from them, then they would resort to measures of crimes. Crime rates will increase. As a result of these, those who are, although they were having the benefits of growth, but they will not be able to enjoy that thing. So if we have to enjoy that thing as a societal system, then we have to generate the incomes in such a level that the negative impacts of deprivation of someone's, they do not translate and come to those who are earning good. Political and ethical concerns. Okay. And also there are ethical concerns to it. There have been debate in the past that someone said that it is not that because of someone's own talent or someone's own potential one was able to earn so much. So there have been debates. Some billionaires, they are saying that it is the aggregate of favorable policies, it is the aggregate of good societal systems, it is the aggregate of good support, good education in their initials, that they are able to utilize and reach to that level. So if someone is being deprived of that, then we cannot claim to be a equal society in the ethical terms as well. What are the reform measures? Policy interventions, progressive taxation, rationalization of the subsidies, expansion of we'll have to wait for a while. So there has to be a rationalization with respect to the subsidies as well. The regressive taxation system that we were talking about in the initial, that how it is negatively impacting a particular section of the population, this also have to be taken care of. Expansion of the social security system, that the disparities that exist at the societal level, they can also be improved. Next is the targeted initiatives such as PM Jan Dhan, PM Kisan, Manrega, and all these welfare schemes. They have to be designed in such a manner that they empower the people as well. We also have to focus upon the skilling of the people. We cannot feed them for eternity. We have to give them the capacities. We have to bring in all those capacities in their own self so that they are able to utilize it. Second, there are certain committee recommendations that are also there. Niti Aayog emphasized investment in human capital, inclusive growth, and that as well. And also there has to be societal measures as well. Societal measures in the sense that strengthening of quality education, healthcare, nutrition, skill development, all these things. So when we have said this thing earlier as well, that when we are talking about these particular issues, then neither the issues nor their solutions, they exist in isolation. We have to take care of the fact that both of these, they feed into each other. This is how it goes on. Poverty in India is not merely an economic condition, but a multidimensional social process rooted in structural inequalities. Is beyond income deprivation to a multidimensional lack of capabilities. It is deeply, you can also highlight some of the government data which could suggest that. What is the level or what is the extent of poverty that exists in case of India? Poverty as a multidimensional social process beyond income metric. It includes health, education, housing, dignity, exited. So the multidimensional poverty index, which is there, multidimensional poverty index, it takes care into, so there have been levels of defining the poverty as well. Earlier, income used to be the only criteria to define that this is the income of a person, and if that person would be categorized as a poor or a rich, then it would be done based on that income only. But these metrics, they have evolved over a period of time. Nutrition has also been included, and the multidimensional poverty index that we are talking about, it includes nutrition, it includes health, it includes education and other aspects of human living which impacts their day-to-day life and their sustenance. So it is beyond the income metric. Second is the capability deprivation. So lack of access to quality. So this lack of capabilities or lack of opportunities that are available with the person, it also decides to a great extent to the level of economic progress that the person can make. A person coming from a rural background who is not having good exposure to a good education system, where they are not learning the state of the art skills, the cutting edge technology, about the cutting edge technologies, so they will not be able to compete with someone who is already having a good exposure in that field. So it is important that that there is some provisioning with respect to the availability of these capacities. Social exclusion. Marginalized groups face barriers in participation and access to state benefits. So we have discussed this thing earlier as well, that how these social inequalities, they create those economic or income inequalities as well, and how certain marginalized groups which are at a relative disadvantage with respect to the control over resources, with respect to the income, and with respect to the opportunities that they get and that they are able to generate. Structural inequalities underpinning poverty. Caste-based stratification. We have understood that the earlier rigid caste system, which sort of obligated the people to work upon certain professions based upon their birth into certain castes. So it made the social mobility so restrictive in its approach that as a result of which a large chunk of the population, they were not able to move out of the roles, and they were not able to utilize their potential properly. So it is this caste-based stratification that we see that the marginalized communities within this social hierarchy, they were not able to reap the benefits or the fruits of it. Second is the gender inequality, which is seen in the case of wage gaps, the unpaid care works that is there. We see low female participation rate that is there, and also on top of that, the other marginalized sections of the society or the vulnerable sections, be it the LGBTQ community, be it the elderly, or other sections which are not able to benefit as a result of this social hierarchy and social stratification. Regional disparities exist. The Bimaru states, they lag in the SDI. So the northern states, because of a large number of issues, high population, low industrialization, higher poverty figures, and due to lack of nutritional security, lack of social infrastructure in health and education, as a result of all these factors, people belonging to these states, so we can see that regional pattern as well with respect to the inequalities that exist. Tribal marginalization, displacement due to development projects, weak implementation of FRA. There exist frameworks with respect to the protection of the marginalized groups. Talking about the tribal groups particularly, there is Forest Right Act which provide them those basic foundational rights that are needed, but their laxity in implementation, their disparities in implementation across the country have generated or amplified that particular disparity. So this marginalization is also contributing. Urban informality, migrants in slum, they lack social security. People are migrating to the urban places in hope of getting better economic opportunities, but what they find is that they might find a job, but the cost of living into the cities is so high that most of their income goes into maintaining that basic life because of lack of housing. They resort to living into the slum areas, and if they are left with a portion of income, so the environment within which they live, it is not suitable for human living, that they have to face certain health related issues, and the remaining portion of their income goes into that health and medical expenditures. Issues and criticism, intergenerational transmission. We have seen that how this is transmitting to the generations. These inequalities they are transmitting. Exclusion from growth and digital divide. So this is a new component of divide or inequality that we are discussing, the digital divide. We have seen that people belonging to relatively affluent sections of the society who are having good access over the resources, and those who are not having good access over the resources, these would be the people who would be making use of the technology more compared to the people who are not having access to good technologies. So these are the people who would benefit more, and they would be able to generate more economic opportunities out of the technology as well. Big businesses, they will adopt the technologies fast and they will utilize in compounding their incomes. However, small businesses, poor people, they do not have access to technology and they will not be able to make big out of it. Significance. Challenges, inclusive development, and SDG, no poverty. What are the reform or measures as a solution to this particular thing? Multidimensional approach, targeting health, education, nutrition. Multidimensional approach has to be there. When we are talking about these, a solution to these, I've already told you that the solution, if the issues is multidimensional, then the solution will also be in that tune. It will also be multidimensional. We will have to focus upon from the basic things to the higher level or the higher needs. Inclusive policies have to be there. There needs to be policies which caters to the demands of those of the big businesses, and there have to be policies which caters to the demand of the Antyodaya section. So Antyodaya is that part of society which is the person who is standing last in the row. If we create a row, then the last person in the row, that person should also benefit from the policies that are created. Committee insights. Rangarajan Committee on emphasize on poverty, broader poverty measurement. So this understanding around poverty is also evolving in the sense that People are taking note of the fact that poverty is not only about income. If I'm not getting good health, if I'm not getting good education, if I'm not getting clean air, then there would be things that my income would also be impacted as a result of this. So we cannot see the concept of poverty in isolation. Okay. Empowerment related measures have to be taken, skilling, women related SSGs, promoting the female participation rate. We have to encourage that to another levels, governance reforms, social audits, digital inclusions, and all these things. Poverty is both a cause and a consequence of social exclusion. How poverty is both a cause and consequence of social exclusion? Poverty, defined as deprivation of basic capabilities, is closely linked with social exclusion. We can start, rather than repeating the verbatim of the question, how can we start giving a basic data about poverty, the levels of poverty that exist in India? We can make use of the multidimensional poverty index. We suggest that this is the level of poverty that exists in case of India. So how it is both a cause as well as consequence of social exclusion. So social exclusion is, we can understand is that within the hierarchy of the society that exists, we see that some of the sections which are described as the marginalized, they are excluded from the societal setup. So how it is cause of social exclusion? Economic deprivation, which leads to marginalization. These people would be left out from the process of growth. These will not benefit from the digital revolution that is taking place. They would be excluded from the hierarchies that existed. So if education, healthcare, access to good digital technologies, they would be left out at this stage as well. And when we would analyze the same thing after 50 years, we would see that if we are not solving this issue, then we will see that those who were not having good access to these things, they did not benefit from it. Caste poverty nexus. SC/ST communities remain overrepresented among the poor. The data, they speak for themselves, that the poverty figures that we see, that most of them belong to the sections of society which are at the marginalized side, which exist on the fringes of the society. It is these people who are at the disadvantage. So there is a nexus between the caste as well as in the poverty. Urban informality. Migrant workers, they face these issues. Digital divide, we have seen that how limited access it can exclude from governance. So there is a term that I would like to discuss here. It is digital poverty. They might ask you this question on digital poverty or the concept. So this talks about that let us assume a society where there are two set of people, the haves, those who are having access to the digital technologies, and those have nots, which are not having access to. So those haves, they will benefit from the economic component of digital technologies. So if someone is building a system and benefit economically out of it, and on the other side there is a person who is not benefiting because of lack of access to the digital technology. So it is these people who would not be benefiting, thus left behind in this process of growth, thus digital poverty. So so these people who are not having access, they will be digitally poor. So you can use this term as well. Poverty as a consequence of social exclusion. So this was the cause. Now, how poverty is a consequence of social exclusion? Denial of opportunities. We have discussed it, that these inequalities that exist at the societal level, they deny the person with the opportunities. Land and resource exclusion. Most of the resources, they are controlled by the people who are affluent, who are in the upper ladder of the societal in the upper part of the societal ladder, in the social hierarchy. These are the people who are in the top of the pyramid, of the social pyramid. They are having a control over the resources. They are having a control over the means and modes of production as well. Gender exclusion. So we can explore these different types of exclusion. Again, we would utilize these verticals only. Those based on gender, those based on caste, ethnicity, religion, those based on region specific exclusions. So this is how we can understand that how the low female workforce participation rate, it is also a factor. Significance of interlinkage, create intergenerational poverty traps, undermine inclusive growth, weaken social cohesion. So because of all these things, that how caste or how social exclusion is, what is the significance of it? It is transmitting those exclusions from one generation to another generation. It is in a way sort of perpetuating that whole thing, creating the earlier existing haves and have nots, or the insecurities in the society from one time to the another one. Reform measures, targeted welfare policies have to be there for different social groups, different ethnic groups, for people belonging to different fringes of the society. There have to be policies. The policies have to be so widen in their ambit that they do not target a particular section of the society, and they doesn't have to be in the top down manner. They have to be in the sense that they caters to the needs of all the sections of the society. Education and skilling, it has to be there. Legal safeguards have to be there. Committee and Rangarajan committee has suggested beyond inclusive governance and conclusion. When we are talking about these issues, that how it is a vicious loop, how it is a vicious cycle, then we'll have to understand it more comprehensively. We have to understand the concept of poverty in broader terms and attach it to the visions that we are following of Viksit Bharat and Sabka Saath Sabka Vikas, which is more of an concept that indicates towards inclusive growth. Development has created new inequalities even as it has reduced absolute poverty. So it's an interesting question which talks about the debate that goes on, that we see that there is development that is happening around. We are seeing that around lots of things are happening. We have reached to an economy which is crossing 4 trillion at this stage. So a 4 trillion economy with a big chunk of its population not having access to food grains, not able to generate enough income for themselves. So where are the things that this gap is actually coming into picture? So we'll understand that how development has created new inequalities. We can start with anything. You can start with development. You can give certain data sets that how development has happened. Just for instance, the nation's inequality between the per capita income and the growth in GDP of the nation. Reduction in absolute poverty. The Niti Aayog's multidimensional poverty index data of 2023 suggest that 13.5 crore people, they exited multidimensional poverty between 2015 to 21. We are seeing that a significant portion of the people, they have come out, but again it all depends upon the definition of the poverty. We are seeing it from the angle of multidimensional poverty index, that these number of people have come out, but is it really having an impact upon the day-to-day lives of the people, is a matter of still discussion and debate. Welfare-led inclusion, that how in the past years, how the different welfare measures that were taken by the government, be it the MG Narega for securing for guaranteeing employment to the people, or be it the direct benefit transfers that are there, be it the Jan Dhan Yojana, or several other schemes that have benefited people. Welfare-led inclusion, rural development gains, electrification, sanitation, and financial inclusion enhanced. So, emergence of new inequalities. So, this is important. This is the core, that how it is generating new inequalities. Income and wealth inequality, K-shaped recovery post the COVID. Okay. That how 40% they is wealth is controlled by 1%. Regional disparities that we see with respect to, again, the inequalities that we have discussed and have been discussing, it is applicable here as well. We have seen this income and wealth inequality, regional disparities, the different verticals that we were talking about, regional disparities, within the gender disparities, urban versus rural. So all these things are highlighted. Digital inequalities, social inequalities that are existing and which are moving ahead. Now we would come as to the solutions to it. What are the issues or criticism of it? Exclusionary urbanization as well. So this is also a phenomena that within the urbanization, which is considered to be a phenomena of promises, that people move to the urban centers in hope of, with aspirations of a good life, good living standards, yet the issues that they face are very significant. So this is how the urbanization is also exclusionary in its nature. Environmental inequality, that the displacement of the people, they would largely be the tribals only, because of certain economic projects or economic growth things going into the tribal belts. So this is one side of it. It threatens social justice and cohesion. Yes, this is very true. So how these new forms of inequalities, they are in a way threatening the social cohesion or the social harmony that was there in the society. Because on the one hand, there are these inequalities, and on the second, there are exclusions that have happened because of the diversities that have existed in the society. So there was a hierarchy in the society because of which exclusions happened, and due to the diversity that exists in the society, it would be perceived differently. One group might perceive it that it is a threat upon their occupational rights or something of that sort, and it can lead to increase in the crime rates. Okay, so this is how all these things they are intertwined and connected. What are the reform measures? It again has to be inclusive growth policies, human capital investment, targeted social justice measures, affirmative actions. They have to be rationalized more, like the reservation regimes or other things. Legal backing has to be there with respect to the basic rights of the people, be it education, be it health or other aspects of human living. They have sanitation, clean air. These have to be provided through strict legal mandates in due course of time. Why are women, SC/STs and migrants disproportionately affected by poverty in India? Again, this is talking about that how certain sections of the society which are categorized as the vulnerable or the marginalized sections of the society, how they are affected more by poverty in India. We have to analyze with respect to the structural factors that are involved in this case. You can start with just giving a brief data about poverty or some introducing a concept related to poverty. Then we move ahead. That what are the structural factors behind it? These things would largely remain same. We have discussed these repeatedly, that how social hierarchy, it will create that discrimination within the society. Second, land and resource alienation, that the scheduled tribe groups or be it the women, we have already discussed that how women in agriculture are only 11 to 12% of women are only having ownership titles of the land that they plow or they work upon. So this inequality with respect to the allocation of resources or with respect to the ownership of these resources is also creating these issues. So this land and resource alienation is also there. Gender inequality, women within the gender as well, there are different inequalities that we see. Informality and migration, again these same things, urban versus rural. So these divides, they are more or less the same in all the cases. Educational deprivation, yes, with respect to the marginalized sections of the society, we also see from the data sets that the literacy figures that are there. Just to give you a context, within the religious diversity that exists in India, without any stereotypes here, we can see that there are the literacy figures within certain religions. It is less compared to other religions. So this is how these inequalities they continue. Spatial exclusion, remote tribal areas, urban slums, they suffer from poor infrastructure, weak healthcare systems. The northeastern states, the Himalayan states, or certain pockets which are in the far-flung areas, be it the Andaman and Nicobar Islands or some other islands, or within the mainland as well, we have the urban centers, out of which we have carved out the slum areas. So this spatial exclusion, it also contributes in a way towards the perpetualization of these inequalities and these deprivations. What are the issues and criticism? Intergenerational poverty. There are policy gaps, that there is large scale leakage of these policies. The perennial issue of corruption, it is also eating up into and perpetualizing these particular issues. We see the exclusion errors, that when the data are collected, one, two, when the schemes, when they are directed for a particular group, but it does not reach to the intended beneficiaries, it creates certain issues. Significance, then reform measures, again targeted policies, empowerment, legal protection, inclusive urbanization, all these things, they will contribute towards it. Differentiate between income poverty and multidimensional poverty. Why has India adopted a multidimensional approach to measuring deprivation? So this is the part of we were talking about earlier as well, that how defining poverty is very crucial. If I say poverty in India is $5, those who earn less than 5, they are poor. And on the other hand, I define that $7 as the poverty line. Then those who are earning less than, they are poor. And there is a third block within which I have included those not having access to good health, good education, good nutrition. They would be categorized as poor. These are three definitions, and when you will take the same set of people, let us say we are talking about 145 million people, 1.45 billion people we are talking about, then, and we try to fit these people into these three different blocks, then we will see that the outcomes would be different. Let us suppose it could be that here the poverty, it is when it is $5, it can be a bit less. Let us say 10%. Yes, 10%. When we increase it to $7, a great jump we would see that it can be 20%. But when we include this particular multidimensional things into it, we could see that the poverty is 30%. I'm just giving a hypothetical situation here, that how different definitions or how the angle of looking at poverty, how it differentiates the numbers that exist. So it depends upon how we define it. So this question particularly talks about that how there is a difference in income poverty and the multidimensional poverty. When you are approaching such questions, just to give you a context, make a diagram: income poverty, multidimensional poverty. This is how. Then write the points 2, 3, 4, and take different parameters upon which you measure. First, definition part, based on minimum consumption or income levels. Who defined these? Tendulkar committee, Rangarajan committee. These committees have defined it. What is multidimensional poverty? Considers deprivations. It defines the deprivations that exist. What is the scope of these two things? So this is the first parameter of distinguishing it. Second, the scope. Income, it is narrow, monetary focus. It only focuses upon the income or the economic aspect. Multidimensional poverty index, it is more broader compared to the the income level. It covers nutrition, it covers education, schooling, and other crucial aspects of human living. Measurement tools: income, it is poverty. We would take a poverty line and describe it. A composite index, where there will be different weightage that would be given to, let us say there are three parameters: nutrition, education, and sanitation. Let us say we have attributed, let us say 40% to it, 30% to it, and 30% to it. Then we would calculate that multidimensional poverty with respect to the weightage that we have attached to each one of the parameters. So this is the measurement tools differences. Examples: income poverty decline post 91, yet lack of sanitation. How we can differentiate it? That the population figures have reduced. It is possible that we have taken 13.5 crore people out of the multidimensional poverty, but is it true? Is it have really materialized into the lives of the people? So this is how you can differentiate it. Why India adopted a multidimensional approach? This is the second part. It captures the real deprivation. It captures the reality that has to be there. Policy targeting. So we know that these deprivations or these poverty, they are because of different reasons, because of different deprivations existing in the social infrastructures. So we would be in a position to design our policies that caters to these things. Data evidences, it gives us more. We have good set of data with respect to these things, rather than the direct poverties. Addressing structural inequalities, we know, we have discussed in great detail that how these inequalities, they have these systemic or these structural things have contributed towards the poverty. So we would be in a position to directly target them and address them then and there only. Global alignment also. It is also important that when we are talking about these things, then we don't only compare that with ourselves, that this is how we have improved. But if we have a composite index that is comparable to the global standards, that we can compare with other nations, then there would be a competitive spirit. We would have a realistic assessment of how this thing is proceeding further. What are the issues? Complexities, weight assignment, implementation gaps. It is data intensive, and there are big issues with respect to data collection with respect to India, and also some of it are very perceptional in the sense that people may not tell the realities completely when they are giving up the data just for the sake of taking benefits. So sometimes these are the practical challenges as well which exist. Significance, it gives us a good holistic understanding, helps in better welfare policies. It can help us addressing the issue of social exclusion, etc. What are the reforms that can be taken? Strengthening of data. When we are talking about these new indexes which feeds upon data, it is very important that these data are not of substandard quality. They have to be of very good quality, which we are feeding into. Convergence approach, integrating scheme across the sectors. When we are making utilization of these data sets, when we are making utilization of these indexes in making our policies, it has to be used across the sectors. It is not that we are using only for health or only for this. We have to work it in entirety. We are planning our infrastructures. We would take help that let us say we are planning certain connectivity projects between two regions. Then we will take help of these composite indexes like multidimensional poverty. We would see that this region have high poverty numbers compared to this region. So there is a need for better infrastructure for all the other benefits to come into this region. So this is how you do it. Inclusive governance. Do you think growth alone is sufficient to eliminate poverty in a diverse country like India? Substantiate your answer. We all know an answer to this thing, that growth alone is not sufficient. Let us see how growth is not sufficient in itself. We can sort of give that how India has grown after 1991. Our GDP numbers have grown after 1991. Role of growth in poverty reduction. First is income expansion. So there was an approach that was initially followed, that was followed in some other parts, that there were two debates. Sorry. First, it talked about that we have to increase the size of the pie or size of the cake. Let us take this cake. There are 5 people who are eating this cake, and they have to. So one set of people, they said that if we increase the size of the cake, let us say this was earlier, now they increased it to this side, then the people who are dependent upon it, they would directly benefit from it. Let us say there are 5 people who are feeding on this particular cake, and if we increase the size of it, which is growth, we increased it, then they would directly benefit from it, which was the trickle down approach, which was talked about, that gradually the growth benefits, they will trickle down. But what happened in case of India, that the size grew to this size, but only 1 or 2% they got the maximum size, and the remaining 3 to 4 people, they had a less say on the share that they got. Okay. Employment generation. If there would be more growth, more income expansion is possible. Employment generation. If there is more growth, there will be more industries. They would require labor, and they would require all sorts of ancillary activities and functioning that would happen around that industrialization or that investment, and people will benefit out of it. Fiscal capacities of the governments will increase, and in that way they would be able to spend more on the social infrastructure. They would be able to spend more on the research and development, in the skilling part of the people, so that they can benefit. Limitations why growth is not unequal distribution. Inequality is the biggest reason that growth alone is not an answer to poverty. Second is jobless growth. We have seen that in case of India, after the software boom or the digital boom that we've seen, that when India transitioned into the tertiary sector, we saw this issue happening in case of India, that the growth was there, but not in proportion to the jobs that it should have created. Persistent social inequalities, they would directly translate into the income inequalities, regional disparities, human development gaps due to incapacities owing to malnutrition, poor healthcare, etc. Structural constraints in case of India, caste and gender, rural-urban divide, informality. What are the response measures? They would be all-encompassing. The governance measures, the policy measures, the participation of the society, the skilling, everything. Inclusive policies, good governance has also to be there for this thing to happen. Then we can again talk about Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, about the inclusive growth, about the sustainable goals, for them to be done realistically. Next question, it talks about the real challenge is not merely poverty reduction, but preventing people from slipping back into poverty. Let us understand a concept here. This is the poverty line that was defined. It can be anything. We are taking the standard $3 approach of World Bank, which says that this is the poverty line. People on this side, they are below poverty line, and people on this side, they are above the poverty line. But there will be certain people who would be here. Earlier they were into this section, so naturally there will be more people on this side, and there will be less on this side. We saw that there was a transition that happened, that these people move into above poverty line because of the changes in the economic system that is taking place. They have got good economic opportunities. The social inequalities, the social mobilities, and all sorts of constraints that we have discussed till now, they have worked favorably in their context, and they have reached to this level. But these set of people, they are at a risk of slipping again to this. Let us say, because of good income for consistently for 12 months or 24 months, people have moved into this direction. But then came a crisis like COVID, and these people, they do not have any source of income now. Then what will happen, that these people will move again into this direction. So this is the issue that the question is talking, that challenge is not merely to bring them out of this, but to prevent them from slipping again into the poverty. Poverty reduction versus vulnerability relapse. Temporary exits, data near poor category. We have talked about the floating population, that this is the floating population. They can shift to any direction at any point of time. All you need is a crisis to hit, and they would be slipping in on the other side of the thing. Structural factors causing relapse into poverty, livelihood insecurity. One of the biggest reason is the informal nature of the jobs in India. Around 90% of the people in India, they are in the informal sector where there is no job security. They can lose their job at any point of time, and if they do so, they are on the side that they would slip to the other side, and they are just floating on that side. Then we have the health shocks that are there. We know that in context of India, the out-of-pocket health expenditure, it is around 50%, somewhere around 48-49%. It is the out-of-pocket health expenditure in case of India. So you need a crisis like a health crisis like COVID for these people to spend their entire saving on the medical and health expenses, and they have again moved into the same bracket of poverty. So health shocks is there due to high pocket expenditure. Agrarian distress. People were doing good in the agriculture. 1 week monsoon, and these people are at the mercy of the nature. They would slip down again into the clutches of the poverty and struggling because of it. Migration vulnerability is there. We have seen that how due to lack of social security, just you were relying hand to mouth, and these hand to mouth people, it takes a crisis of migration and they would be negatively impacted. Social inequalities are there. Issues and criticism, policy focus on exit, not sustainability. So the measures are there, just the exit. We are focusing more on that side, that somehow these people, they get from the below poverty line to the above poverty line, and we are counting them. But this is not sustainable in the long run, in the sense that these people can slip away at any point of time. Fragmented welfare delivery because of the leakages, corruption, because of the inequalities, the divergences that we see at multiple levels, judicial insights, significance. This is important for human development, social security, and for achieving of the sustainable development goals. You can use this thing in the conclusion part as well. What are the reforms? Social protection, livelihood security, portability of benefits, committee insights. So these are the things which needs to be worked upon or needs to be improved, and it has to be a multidimensional solution again. Moving on to our next question, it talks about poverty reduction is not only about lifting incomes, it requires building resilience, capacity, and social inclusion. Examine with reference to recent poverty statistics. Again, this is talking that how when we are talking about poverty reduction, it doesn't have to be that we, for a certain period of time, we increase the income of the people and the job is done. No, that is not done. If they are not resilient enough to absorb the shocks that can happen to them, they have not come out of the clutches of poverty. Recent poverty trends, decline in the multidimensionality poverty. We have seen that how 13.5 people crore have moved out of it in the 7 years. Second is improvement in the indicators. We are seeing that there are significant improvements with Swachh Bharat mission, with the help of direct benefit transfers that people get. But is it really helping them? Is it really making them resilient? Let us see it. Beyond income, need for resilience and capacity. Shock absorption have to be there. Capacity building of human, it has to be there. that the education reforms, that our targets of malnutrition, healthcare, they have to work in that particular direction. They have to move in that direction, that it is helping them overall. Social inclusion, equity, SC, ST women, and other marginalized groups, they continue to face structural barriers in education. So again, these things are just a repetition of that. Issues and criticism, growth without security, that we are focusing more on the growth but with no security. They can lose at any point of time. We have seen that in the in the IT sector, there are mass shedding of the employees by the multinational companies. So these people, earlier they were having a good life, good income, but now they are not. So it is this part which has to be taken care of. Significance, poverty, if we have to effectively counter the issue of poverty, and we have to drive the poverty alleviation measures, then they have to be sustainable. They have to be in depth in their approach. Okay, what are the reforms? Again, social protection. We have to work on how the implementation of policies can be made effective in this sense. Governance reforms like one nation, one ration card, digital inclusion. These policies, they expand the ambit of how people can get benefits. Earlier, someone having a ration card was only getting benefit either in some state of the country or in some other state. But now, with the help of digital technology, we were able to reverse that particular thing and bring out the benefits of it. Next question, it talks about poverty reduction in India has been faster in rural areas than in urban areas. Does this trend guarantee inclusive development? So this is a good observation, that how the poverty figures, they are reducing more significantly in the rural areas compared to the urban areas. Let's see how. Data evidence. Niti Aayog's multidimensional poverty index of 2023 suggests that rural poverty declined from 32% to 19%, which is faster than the urban decline. MG Narega ensured wage security. Swachh Bharat Mission, Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin, these improved the living standards. Basic services, electrification, sanitation, and rural roads, they enhance the quality of life. So, discussing upon the different indicators of the multidimensional index, we see multidimensional poverty index, sorry. So the different indicators, they have improved significantly into the rural areas. One is the base effect, that there were already very or non-existent level of reaching out of these benefits, that when they've got these benefits, there was a significant jump that was observed in here. Does this ensure inclusive development? Urban poverty persistence has led to slums, informal employment, migrant vulnerability, poor. So we know that urban poverty is a big issue that India is facing. And when we are talking that there is reduction in the poverty figures in the rural areas, then in a way we can also see that these people are migrating to the urban areas. The urban stress or the stress on the urban infrastructure is very significant in case of India. We see that in case of the major metropolitan cities across the country, be it the Delhi NCR, be it Mumbai, be it Chennai, Kolkata, Pune, or Hyderabad, Bengaluru, these cities are experiencing that particular thing. Okay, quality versus quantity of gains. We can count upon the quantitative aspect of it, that this is the number that we have improved. But can we really vouch for the quality that we have attempted even in the rural areas? Is there a regular follow-up for those particular things as well? Regional imbalances also exist. We have discussed that how these things. Social inequalities, they continue. Urban informality. There is the urban poverty. One of the big reasons for this is that the 80% of it is is in the informal nature. So that poverty, and that poverty is getting amplified. We have already discussed that the cost of living is so high in the urban areas that despite earning a decent income in the urban centers, they were not able to come out of those poverty. Had this income been in the rural areas, they would have been able to manage it more effectively or in a better manner, but not able to do because of the high living cost. Issues and criticism, urban policy neglect. Yes, this is that there are some of the policies which are better implemented, and one of the biggest example of it is the MG Narega. That MG Narega have helped people, it have guaranteed employment opportunities to people in the rural areas, which is not in the case of urban areas. There have been a debate going on this, that there should be an urban employment guarantee scheme as well on the lines of the MG Narega. Second is exclusion errors. Migrants are often excluded from urban welfare. We know that due to poor accounting of these people, they do not get the benefits, the basic benefits of healthcare, of education, etc. But if we improve upon this side, that there is better data collection, there is regular collection of data, and we are revising upon these data sets, then we would be having better information for that particular thing. What is the significance of these? A balanced rural urban development. When we are talking about inclusive development, then it doesn't have to be that we would improve urban areas, then the situation will improve. No, there has to be a balance that has to be established both within the urban and the rural areas, that will be there. So how this balance? If we are having developed villages, then there is a high probability that we'll have good urban spaces, because it is due to deprivations existing in the rural areas that people are transitioning or they are migrating to the urban areas. Essential, it is very important for the sustainable development goals as well, that we see that when we are aspiring for a development that includes all the important aspects of human living, we have to be very inclusive in our approach when we are doing that. New forms of urban inequality. What are the reform measures? Urban inclusion, affordable rental housing, urban employment schemes. So these things have to be there. Housing is one of the biggest reasons. Second is the health. These are two sectors where most of the income of the people or the migrants who are migrating, their income is going. Portability has to be there. This can be further improved in other aspects of the welfare schemes. Livelihood diversification. When we are talking about urban employment, then there has to be skill centers that promote the diversification of the skills. The local level industries in the urban areas that can also promote. Governance, urban governance have to be strengthened. We have talked about that how the urban local bodies, they lack the 3 F's, which is the funds, functions, and functionaries. How they lack these basic things, as a result of which they are not able to work effectively. Then you can here you can talk about SDG 11, which is the sustainable cities. You can talk about others, reduction of the poverty, zero poverty SDG as well. So this is how you can conclude. You can also link it to Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, the ideals of Vikshit Bharat, and India at 75, India at 100, all these documents that are there. So with this, I think we have decently concluded, or we have understood almost all the topics of the society. We have understood as to how all these things that we have studied so far, they are interlinked to each other. When we are discussing the vertical of, let us say, caste, when we are discussing about ethnicity, the diversity in the society, the different societal values, when we are talking about the population issues, when we are talking about the poverty, when we are talking about women and women related issues, urbanization and related issues, regionalism, communalism, all these things are interlinked. All of them are integrated in such a manner. So this is how you can do. What else you can do after this? Once you have done this, just go to the chapter 1 of the book, and you would find all the relevant data or facts that can be utilized in this. So I think we have substantially covered the Indian society part with the help of templates of a large number of questions over a series of discussions that we had in the past. So with that, I think we are done with the society section. Thank you so much, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you so much.